Good morning, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and welcome back. I can't get rid of that dang ad. Welcome back to our weekly updates for 2020, or not updates, but our weekly 2020 election predictions. And I read an article somewhere, I think it was an article on 538, saying that Clinton might be gearing up for another presidential run. Which I think is a terrible idea. I think she'd lose even more. You can go through, historical elections, and Americans tend not to elect presidential losers if they run again, especially if they run against the same person that they lost their first election to. I think the notable exception to that would be the notable exceptions to that are Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson. Though in 1800 there were some extenuating circumstances and the general unpopularity of Adams, and in 1828 there was the fact that Andrew Jackson probably should have been elected by the House of Representatives, but John Quincy Adams was. So there was resentment against Adams, and also, again, the House of Representatives was involved in 1824, so 1828 was the first time it was just two people, and Jackson was exceedingly popular. He had a cult of personality similar to Trump's. I'm trying to think of any other exceptions I can think of. William Jennings Bryan, no, he lost by larger margins each time he ran. There was I think it was Alf Landon lost twice to FDR. Adlai Stevens lost twice to Eisenhower. Nixon's an exception. He lost to Kennedy but defeated Hubert Humphrey, but that was amidst an extremely unpopular war in which Nixon promised to end, which eventually he did. Lyndon Baines Johnson wasn't exactly popular, and there was also a third party ticket kind of splitting Southern Democrats off, which paved the way for Nixon to win. As well as Nixon maybe being slightly more popular, though not really. That's really the exception that's really the exception. So I wanted to make this scenario a little bit more interesting by including a third-party progressive candidate running as an independent. And the only one who I think would have the popularity to pull it off would be Sanders. Despite how I think that if he was running alone as a Democrat, I think he would still lose. And you can go see my reasoning behind that on my last Trump versus Sanders prediction, where I actually went through primary results to explain that in some areas of the country, not even Democrats want him, aka the South, and Virginia is a part of the South, as much as some people want to say that Nova would run it. Sanders didn't win Nova. Sanders did best out in Appalachia, where you have people who are more willing to back a person like Sanders, and I can understand why. Sanders speaks to the type of voters that are out here in this area. So does Trump. And Sanders, I think, is culturally in the wrong area to pick these areas up in a general. And even though he would be running as a Democrat in that scenario, Nova tends to go with the more moderate candidate. Remember, even as recently as 2004, which was only 14 years ago, not that far, most of those voters are still alive and still voting. They were moderate Republicans. Do you really think they're going to vote for a progressive? Because I don't. But that's beside the point. I wanted to include Sanders because I think if someone like a Clinton, a super establishment Democrat, gets the nomination, I do think there is a very high likelihood that we see an independent progressive ticket, maybe co-opted by the Green Party. Maybe the Green Party says, well, this is our best chance, we'll nominate this person, and that'll give us some credibility or something like that. Because I don't think Republicans are going to leave Trump, especially after he's nominated Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court and then got Neil Gorsuch appointed, and also after this most recent SCOTUS nominee in Brett Kavanaugh. Personally, I would have preferred Hardiman, but meh. And I actually was wrong because I expected Amy Coney Barrett to be nominated because I thought Trump would want to go for that kind of pick. Very young, a woman, a Catholic, a conservative. That's kind of like, I think that would have been his best pick politically, but maybe Kavanaugh is better for the simple fact that it's a safe pick. Barrett is still a bit of an unknown. We don't have a lot of rulings from her. Kavanaugh, on the other hand, we know clerked for Scalia. I mean, so did Barrett, but he's had a lot more opinions written. He's written something like 300, and he tends to, even a lot of, he tends to say, rule what Republicans want to hear, which is somebody who's, quote, an originalist. Someone who takes the Constitution at face value, taking into consideration the language of the time it was written. That said, whether or not that's the correct way to interpret the Constitution is anyone's guess. Personally, I think it is, but not necessarily in the way a conservative would say an originalist, which is someone who would rule with conservative intentions. I mean, read the exact letter. When I say I prefer originalists, I say read the exact letter of the law and understand that, yes, flag burning is protected free speech because it is political. Stuff like that, and that would anger a lot of conservatives if I said that. So, anyway, now that I've piddled around a lot and spent 8 minutes trying to explain why I don't think there would be a right-wing third-party / independent challenge, and why I think there might be a left-wing third-party independent challenge. Let's go into what I think would happen in this case. Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm giving Vermont to Sanders. I think he would perform extremely well in his home state. He wouldn't perform as well as maybe he should because there would be a lot of people fearful of handing the state to Trump, and of course the election to Trump. Now let's go through all the states that Trump would safely carry under normal circumstances. We'll come back to Texas because he didn't safely carry it. It was within 10%, and I'm going to acknowledge that. Actually, South Carolina was within 10, if I remember correctly. And now we've got an interesting map, because I'm not sure how I would go with this. I think Maine, which I am going to bring up here. Oop, damn it, what state was that? No, not North Carolina. I want ME. There we go. Maine. So, the weird thing is, it has ranked choice voting. So that means, I think it even goes towards the presidential race, because it goes for the Senate race as well. So, I think we'd at least get one vote for the Republican and one vote for the Democrat, because I don't think Sanders would be greater. Well, maybe. I think people would just be too scared to vote for Sanders in a lot of places. So I'm going to assume that it's 3-1 for Clinton. We're going to give DC to Clinton. I think we're going to give Massachusetts a lot more narrowly to Clinton. And same with a lot of these states. Depending on how well Sanders can campaign, Rhode Island, Connecticut, even New Jersey and Delaware are somewhat competitive. I'm going to leave Maryland for Clinton. Delaware was, I think, within 10 or just at 10%. I don't think Sanders would collect those 10%, but he might collect 6 or 7, making it a really competitive state. We can easily give New Hampshire to Trump, because, remember, this is Democrat vote splitting, not Republican vote splitting. New York, there would be, I think it would still go to Clinton, but it would be within 10. I think we can almost guarantee that Trump would carry Ohio and Pennsylvania and really any state that he carried in 2016, simply due to vote splitting. And sure, that already gives him the election as is. Illinois, I think, would still go to Clinton. Minnesota would probably go to Trump because of vote splitting. Same with Virginia. I'm going to go ahead and give the West Coast to Clinton. These 3 states I give to Trump simply because the gap was 2% in Nevada, 3% in Colorado, 8% in New Mexico. And a lot of Southwest states are willing to vote for third-party candidates in a lot of situations, as we saw in 2016, simply because a lot of third-party candidates are either from the Southwest or they just do really well there for some reason. I think it's because people of the Southwest they're truly independent voters. They just tend to vote for the party that's closest to them, but a lot of them seem to want to take their own path. So this is what I would expect from a Trump versus Clinton, with Sanders being a factor. So Trump v. Clinton v. Sanders. And assuming Sanders actually campaigns seriously, instead of just, oh, my name's on the ballot. Not knowing Sanders, but from what I know of Sanders, I think he's the type of person who would seriously campaign if he were to campaign. Now, this is a placeholder. Now, Sanders is a placeholder for any progressive who thinks the establishment controls the Democrat Party too much. And Clinton is a placeholder for any extremely establishment corporate Democrat. But I'm going specifically based off of this rather than if it was, say, a Pelosi versus, Pelosi and Warren, or some people like that. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. I'll probably do Booker versus Trump. And I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Bye.